Alright, in this video we're going to talk about getting that plan of action together. You are never going to sit down to design a web page without having at least some planning ready beforehand, or at least you shouldn't.
You need a plan of attack.
Exactly, because if you don't, it's going to show in your website. So what do we mean when we say get plan of attack? Well, that means to sit down and brainstorm about the site you're going to make. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to have a brainstorming session about the site that we're creating. And you're welcome to kind of follow along on your end and listen to what we're talking about. But what I'd like each of you to do who are currently watching this video is to think about the kind of site you want to make while we're doing this. Think of this video as a general look at brainstorming because, of course, I don't think any of you out there are going to be making a site over logging. Maybe you are. But even if you are, you won't be making one quite like this one. So try to keep an open mind. And again, think of this as an example of brainstorming.
Right. This is about learning techniques.
Exactly. And we're going through a process to get from one end of this to the other. So, all right, where do we start? First off, we know that our site is about a logging company. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm brainstorming is sit down with a pen and a piece of paper, usually several pieces of paper,
right,
and I will jot down every idea I can come up with, write down important points, and there's a lot of different ways to do this. We're going to demonstrate a few of them, but let's just start off simply. What do we know about the company? We do have a name for the company.
That's right.
The company name, and let's go ahead and I'll start making this kind of organized. So we have the company name. And this is Stones River Logging. Stones River Logging. There you go. There's and we can probably .inc.
That's right.
So that is the name of our company. Now, what does the company do? So, well, let's try this. We'll erase that. We'll say, what do they do? Well, they're a logging company. They make logs.
They grow trees.
They grow trees. They cut down trees, and they make logs.
They sell them.
That's right. So those are that's going to be very important for our site. Now, given folks, I realize that to a few of you out there, this is going to seem really elementary, and you're going to be like, why am I wasting my time doing this? Remember that this is a process.
Right.
You're going to start off simple. You're going to start writing down every idea you can come up with. You probably won't use a pretty good chunk of the ideas that you have, but this is a way for you to be able to tell what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, a way to run ideas by other people. It just makes the whole thing easier.
Just get it all out on paper into the open so you can check mark the things you like and cross out the things you don't.
Exactly. So, I mean, maybe if what do? They make logs, they grow trees. So let's see if we wrote that down. Maybe in our site, we're not going to be focusing too much on how they're growing trees, so we might just kind of make a note of that. It's still there. We wrote it down, but we're not going to keep it.
That's right.
But it's important to the process, so just kind of keep that sort of thing in mind whenever possible. All right, so what else do we know about the company? Well, we've been given some text that we'll go over a little bit later when we start gathering all of our elements for the site. For the time being, this is what we know. We know they're a logging company. We know they sell logs. What kind of photos are we going to have? Of course, imagery is very important on a website. So as far as images are concerned, what sort of things are we going to want to see? Probably things like trees. Probably logs. That would be important. Now, what goes along with logs? Lumberjacks. So let's see. Lumberjacks. What else? What else is important?
It goes with trees.
Yeah.
How about saws? You cut down the trees.
Saws are important. Yeah.
You build houses or log cabins.
Yeah, houses. Now, see, this is one way that we can go about listing off ideas. Now, right now, we're primarily going with ideas for images, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. If you don't want to think of this as exactly what sort of images you want to have, you can just think of this like general ideas that your site is going to convey. Let me see if I can do a straighter line than that. I'll try holding down the Shift key. That should help. There we go. So this could just be key ideas. what sort of things need to be portrayed by your site. So
Right.
maybe things like trees and logs and lumberjacks are all going to be important to the site itself. Now, this is just one method. It's just listing off ideas. A lot of times when I'm brainstorming, I also use a word web. Now, what that is simply you start with one word. And in this case, since we have a logging company, we'll start with the word log. Now, depending on what kind of site you guys at home are making, you'll probably start with another word.
I hope so.
I hope so. So
You don't have to start with log.
You don't have to start with log. It would be interesting to see what kind of site. What are you making a site about? Tennis shoes. Well, start with log. See where you get. So we'll start with log. And what can you do with logs? What's important to logs? Well, I mean, same thing we had before. We could start with trees. Now, what's something that kind of goes along with trees?
Leaves.
Leaves is a good one.
Trunks, tree trunks.
Leaves, trunks,
branches.
Let's see if I can get that C in there. Squirrels. No, I won't write that.
Bark.
Bark. Oh, yeah. All of these things. And so let's go ahead and we'll add in bark. And once we think we've explored one area enough, go back one level. So we'll go back to log. Now, what else can you do with logs? Well, you can build homes. So now, what are important aspects of homes? Things like, well, walls, a roof, walls. I'll try to squeeze roof in here. That worked. Doors, windows.
You can have wooden doors for sure.
Yeah, you have wooden doors. Stairways, that comes to mind.
Wood floors.
Windows. Yeah, floors because of wooden floor.
Sure.
And you just write down as many ideas as you can. And use this as a guideline for when you're trying to come up with the things your site is going to portray. What sort of images are you going to try to show the viewer to to show them different things? They need variety to keep your site interesting, but all things that focus in on your main theme, which in this case is a logging company. So we want to try to bring it all back to logs on some level.
Right.
So again, these are just ways to go about brainstorming. So let's see. This is stuff that's working out for us pretty well. We have homes.
How about machinery?
Machinery. There you go.
You cut the logs.
That's right. So
you lift the logs, transport the logs.
Machines. So we can go over here with saws and try to squeeze it. Sometimes you got to really cram in here. So we'll say trucks for transporting.
Yeah.
Heavy machines for picking up the logs, so backhoes, things like that. So yeah, you can continue this all day, and really, a lot of people will ask me, so when are you done brainstorming? It's an interesting question. Usually, you just kind of know when you've explored your idea to its fullest, when you start repeating yourself a lot, and you can't think of anything else to add. That's usually when you're done brainstorming.
And it might be a good idea just to take a break.
Exactly.
15 minutes, half hour, or longer.
Yeah. Walk away from it. Have a drink of coffee. Go watch television.
Yeah.
Come back to your idea and take a look at some of your ideas. So let's see. We've, we're talking about some of this stuff now for a logging company. Homes are going to be important in general to see. Floors might be a little bit too specific because we don't sell flooring, so maybe we'll come back in and cross that off. That's not going to be a major factor for our site. Doors are kind of cool. Maybe we could segue that into something like, your way to getting logs, that sort of thing. Roofs, maybe not. Over here with machines, saws are probably still going to be important. Do we really need to show the logs being transported from one area to another? Nah, so we can cross off trucks. We won't really make that a part of the site. And you can just follow this pattern. And this works with anything. Like if you're making a site over soccer, maybe your kid plays soccer. I don't know. You could start off with soccer in the middle. And what goes along with soccer? Well, there's soccer balls. There's referees. So referees have whistles.
And jerseys.
Jerseys, shin guards, cleats. Just follow your ideas wherever they can go, because this is going to help you so much when you're trying to choose the kind of things you're going to show, the kind of things you're going to talk about. It's all very important. And sometimes, I know there's a lot of people, when they first get into brainstorming, they feel a little silly doing it.
Right.
You'll get over that. Like, I swear, 2 minutes after you start brainstorming, it'll start to kind of flow naturally, and you'll start coming up with all sorts of ideas. Run your ideas by other people whenever possible. If you have anybody else in your house or at your office that you can run your ideas by, present to them your ideas. Show them your word webs. Ask them, like in this case, maybe go to somebody else and say, when you think of a logging company, what are some of the first things that come to mind? The reason you do this is you're trying to broaden your horizons. You're trying to make a website that is going to get your idea across to the widest number of people possible.
Right, because you just don't know who's going to visit the site.
That's right. So talk to people. Get input. So let's take a look at what we've got so far. Of course, we've got logs, homes, walls. What other things might be important?
Oh.
Let's see. Do we have anything else? I'm trying to take a look here. People, because we want, folks who build houses. So, like,
right.
when we go off houses.
Carpenters.
Yeah, carpenters and that sort of thing.
People use your product. In this case.
Yeah, how do they use the product? That's something like if you're selling something on your site, you should always try to keep that in mind.
Don't be afraid to do absurd things. Like, even though people probably aren't going to be buying these logs for, say, firewood.
Sure.
Just throw it out there as an idea.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something else you do with wood. You burn it. Like something else that people do with logs, they make them into baseball bats,
Right.
So don't be afraid to explore, because what that's going to do is allow you to it gives you a larger base of ideas to build from.
Right. And you'll think it's silly until you get to like 2 or 3 really good ideas that you didn't have before, and then you're like, oh, this was a good idea.
And you'll start combining ideas.
Right.
I mean, maybe you'll have a picture of a really nice log with a baseball bat leaning up against it, and maybe you can show on your site. There's a lot of different uses for logs. So a lot of different ways to go about this. And just remember, if this is you, and this is you, this is going to be your stack of ideas for your site, okay? This is going to be the stack of ideas you'll probably keep.
Right.
And this is the way it should be. It is good. Actually, if you have this many ideas to choose from, it's a lot more likely you're going to come up with a good idea than if you just start with this many ideas to begin with.
Exactly.
So throw out as many things as you can. So really with that, we've got a sort of a general idea of some of the things that we want to talk about. Again, this video is more or less just a way to get you comfortable with the idea of brainstorming, to get you into it. So do this. Don't think that just because you saw us do it, that you can do it all in your head. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't need to write down when I'm brainstorming. I can just do it all in my head and figure out what's good and what's bad. And no, chances are you can't do that. And you're going to need to get as many of these ideas out into the physical world as you can, sift through them, and keep these as notes all the while you're building your site. Have these on hand to go back and refer to.
Yeah, it will really help you.
Absolutely. It'll make the whole thing smoother. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up for this video. Thank you very much.
Thanks.